Jake Williams hated the night shift. Absolutely hated it. Here he was, 26 years old with a degree in xenoarchaeology, and what was he doing? Sitting in a basement vault at 3 in the morning, cataloging space junk that nobody would ever look at twice. The pay was decent, sure. The Interstellar Museum needed someone to process all the artifacts coming back from deep space expeditions, and apparently Jake was desperate enough to take a job where his only company was centuries-old alien garbage and a thermos of cold coffee. Tonight's exciting task was logging item reference number 7842. A black sphere, about the size of a basketball, perfectly smooth and completely boring. The expedition team found it floating in orbit around a dead planet in the Epsilon Eridani system. Every scan came back negative. No energy signature. No internal structure. No nothing. Just a really expensive paperweight that somehow cost taxpayers millions of dollars to retrieve. Jake picked it up, surprised by how light it felt, and turned it over in his hands. Nothing. Not even a scratch or a seam. He placed it on the examination table and pulled up the digital form on his tablet. Origin, unknown. Composition, unknown. Purpose, unknown. Age, probably really old. Great. Real scientific stuff there. He glanced at the clock. 5 more hours until his shift ended. 5 more hours of this soul-crushing tedium. Jake leaned back in his chair, putting his feet up on the desk in a way that would definitely get him fired if his supervisor walked in. Not that anyone ever came down here during the night shift. You know what? Jake said out loud to the empty room, looking at the sphere. You're supposed to be some mysterious alien artifact. The least you could do is be interesting. He waited, as if expecting an answer. Nothing. Of course nothing. He was talking to a rock. But boredom does strange things to people, and Jake found himself continuing the one-sided conversation. Come on. Wake up. Do something. Glow. Beep. Anything. Give me one interesting thing to put in this report. The sphere didn't move. Jake sighed and reached for his coffee. That's when it happened. The black surface rippled like water, and suddenly the sphere was glowing with an intense violet light that made Jake fall backward out of his chair. He scrambled back, knocking over his thermos, coffee spreading across the floor as the light grew brighter and brighter. Then the light stabilized, pulsing gently, and Jake heard something that made his blood run cold. A voice. Not through his ears, but directly inside his head, speaking words that shouldn't make any sense, but somehow he understood every single one. I am awake. Jake pressed himself against the wall, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. What are you? I am a keeper. A sentinel placed by the progenitors. The voice was ancient, powerful, and completely calm. You have awakened me, human. Now answer my question. State your bloodline. My what? Jake's voice came out as a squeak. Your bloodline. Your genetic lineage. Your ancestral heritage. The sphere pulsed with each word. This is a simple question. All species understand bloodlines. Jake's mind was racing. An actual alien artifact. Talking to him. Asking about his family tree. This was insane. This couldn't be happening. He was probably asleep at his desk, having the weirdest dream of his life. I don't know what you want me to say, Jake stammered. Your ancestry. Where do your people come from? Oh, okay. Jake took a shaky breath, trying to organize his thoughts. My mom's side is Irish and Mexican. Her mom came from Guadalajara, and her dad's family emigrated from Dublin way back. My dad's got German in him, some Native American ancestry too, I think Navajo? And there's definitely Italian somewhere in there because my great-grandmother made incredible pasta. Might be some other stuff too, honestly. We did one of those DNA tests a few years back and it was like a dozen different places. The silence that followed was deafening. The sphere's light dimmed slightly, then brightened again. Jake waited, wondering if he'd somehow given the wrong answer. Maybe he was supposed to know his family history better. Maybe aliens expected detailed genealogical records or something. Finally, the keeper spoke again, and Jake could swear he heard confusion in that ancient voice. You possess multiple ancestral bloodlines. Yeah? I mean, doesn't everybody? Jake was still pressed against the wall, but curiosity was starting to override his fear. That's pretty normal where I come from. No. The single word carried enormous weight. No, human. It is not normal. In 5 million years of observation and contact, no other species has demonstrated this characteristic. Jake blinked. Wait, Are you saying other aliens don't have mixed ancestry? Correct. Every intelligent species the progenitors encountered maintained distinct, separated genetic populations. Your claim of multiple integrated bloodlines within a single individual is unprecedented. But that's just how humans are, Jake said, finally finding his courage and standing up. People move around. They meet each other. They have kids. Those kids have kids with other people. It's been happening for thousands of years. The sphere pulsed brightly. This changes everything. Human, what is your designation? Jake. Jake Williams. Jake Williams. You have awakened me with a revelation that contradicts 5 million years of galactic observation. I require verification of your claim. I must scan your species. Scan us? What does that mean? It means, Jake Williams, that your simple joke has just altered the course of galactic history. And you will be the one to bear witness to what comes next. Jake looked down at the spilled coffee on the floor, then back at the glowing alien sphere that he'd accidentally activated by telling it to wake up. His boring night shift had just become a whole lot more complicated. I really should have just stayed quiet, Jake muttered. The Keeper's light pulsed in what might have been amusement. Too late for that now, human. The test has begun. Jake's hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone. This was way above his pay grade. Way above. He was supposed to catalog artifacts, not activate ancient alien technology that wanted to scan humanity. His supervisor was going to kill him. Actually, his supervisor was probably going to have a heart attack first, then kill him. Listen, Keeper, Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. Before you start scanning anyone, maybe we should talk to some people who actually know what they are doing? I'm just the night shift guy. You awakened me. You are the designated contact. Yeah, but I literally just dust things and fill out forms. There are actual scientists upstairs who get paid way more than me to handle situations like this. The sphere pulsed. Very well. Summon your scientists. But I will only interface directly with you, Jake Williams. You were chosen by circumstance, which the progenitors believed was the purest form of selection. 20 minutes later, the vault was absolute chaos. Dr. Lisa Grant arrived first, still in her pajamas with a lab coat thrown over them, her gray hair sticking up in every direction. She took one look at the glowing sphere and actually gasped. Jake had never seen her show emotion before. It's active, she whispered, approaching slowly like it might explode. Jake, what did you do? I told it to wake up, Jake admitted. As a joke. You told a progenitor artifact to wake up as a joke. In my defense, I didn't think it would actually work. Within the hour, the small vault was packed with people. Scientists, military personnel, government officials, and even Director Patterson himself, who Jake had only seen in employee orientation videos. Everyone was trying to talk at once, asking questions, taking readings, arguing about protocols. The Keeper ignored all of them. It only responded when Jake spoke. This is highly irregular, Director Patterson said, his face red with frustration. I am the director of this facility. That artifact should be answering to me. Tell him I do not answer to authority structures, the Keeper said in Jake's mind. I answer to the one who awakened me. These are the rules established by the progenitors. Jake reluctantly repeated the message. Patterson looked like he wanted to argue, but Dr. Grant put a hand on his arm. Sir, we need to work with this. Jake's our only line of communication. Fine, Patterson snapped. Williams, ask it what it wants. Jake cleared his throat. The Keeper says it needs to verify my claim about human ancestry. It wants to scan our species. Dr. Grant pulled out her tablet. We can provide genetic samples. I can have a team ready in an hour to begin proper documentation. But the Keeper had other plans. Before anyone could react, the sphere's light intensified, and suddenly every screen in the room came alive. Laptops, tablets, the main computer system, even people's phones. Code scrolled across displays faster than human eyes could follow. What's it doing? Someone shouted. Dr. Grant's fingers flew across her tablet, trying to understand the data stream. Her eyes went wide. It's accessing the global genetic database. Not just ours, it's into the International Ancestry Registry, medical records, everything. It's scanning every DNA profile on Earth. Shut it down. Patterson ordered. We can't. It's not hacking, it's just, there. Like it has root access to everything. Dr. Grant looked up at Jake, her expression caught between terror and wonder. It's scanning 8 billion people simultaneously. The room fell silent except for the hum of computers working overtime. Jake watched the screens, feeling helpless. He'd done this. His stupid joke had unleashed something that was now rifling through humanity's entire genetic history. How long will this take? Jake asked the sphere quietly. 7 minutes and 32 seconds, the keeper responded. Those were the longest 7 minutes of Jake's life. Scientists muttered nervously. Military officers had their hands on weapons that probably wouldn't do anything against an artifact that could take over computer systems with a thought. Jake just stood there, watching the countdown on Dr. Grant's screen. When the scanning finished, the screens went dark for a moment. Then the keeper projected something into the air above it, a hologram so clear and detailed it looked solid. This is the genetic map of the Valerian species, the keeper announced, and everyone could hear it now, not just Jake. They existed 4 million years ago. Observe. The hologram showed what looked like a planetary map with different colored clusters scattered across continents. Each cluster was separate, distinct, with clear boundaries between them. There was minimal mixing, just isolated populations living apart. The Valorians had 17 distinct bloodlines. Each maintained genetic purity. They went extinct after 3,000 years of civilization, destroying themselves in genetic superiority wars. The hologram changed. The Catherine Collective. 3 million years ago. 23 bloodlines. Extinct after inventing spaceflight. Cause, inability to cooperate across genetic divisions. Another change. The Torsion Empire. 1.7 million years ago. 8 bloodlines organized in a strict caste system. Extinct. Cause, the lower castes eventually rebelled and the resulting war left their homeworld uninhabitable. Species after species appeared, each one showing the same pattern. Separated populations. Distinct genetic groups. Clear divisions. And every single one ended in extinction. 37 species, the keeper said. All destroyed by their inability to see past bloodline divisions. Then the hologram changed one last time, and Jake heard several people gasp. It showed Earth, but it looked nothing like the previous displays. Instead of separate clusters, it was a web of light, connecting every continent, every region, every population to thousands of others. The lines crisscrossed and overlapped until the entire planet glowed with interconnection. This is humanity, the keeper said, and Jake thought he detected something like awe in its voice. You have no separate bloodlines. You have one, infinitely varied and interconnected. Every analysis I run shows the same result. Your species has achieved complete genetic integration while maintaining diversity. Dr. Grant was staring at the display with tears running down her face. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Centuries of migration, of people falling in love across borders, of children being born from every combination imaginable. We accidentally created something unique. Not accidental, the keeper corrected. Humanity chose this, generation after generation. Each individual choice to look past superficial differences, repeated billions of times, created this pattern. You are the first species in 5 million years to overcome the tribal instinct that destroys civilizations. Patterson found his voice. So what does this mean? What happens now? The sphere's light pulsed steadily. It means humanity has passed the test. The test that the progenitors designed and that 37 other species failed. Jake Williams, as the one who awakened me, you are designated as humanity's representative. You must now choose whether your species will accept the inheritance. What inheritance? Jake asked, though part of him already knew the answer would change everything. Everything the progenitors left behind. Technology, knowledge, power, and the responsibility that comes with being the first successful species in 5 million years. Jake looked around the room at all the faces staring at him. Scientists, soldiers, officials, all waiting for his response. He was just a night shift cataloger who'd made a joke. Now he was apparently speaking for the entire human race. I think, Jake said slowly, we're going to need a bigger room for this conversation. The news spread like wildfire. Within 48 hours, everyone on Earth knew about the Keeper. Social media exploded. News channels ran nothing but coverage of the alien artifact that had declared humanity special. World leaders were in emergency sessions. And Jake Williams, the guy who'd been dusting shelves 3 days ago, was now the most famous person on the planet. He hated every second of it. I just want to go back to my apartment and sleep for a week, Jake muttered, slumped in a chair in the museum's main conference room. Dr. Grant sat across from him, looking just as exhausted. Not happening, she said, sliding a coffee across the table to him. The Keeper wants to meet more humans, remember? We've got people flying in from everywhere. Why though? Jake asked. It already scanned everyone. It knows about our genetics. What's the point of interviews? I don't think it's about data anymore, Dr. Grant said thoughtfully. I think it wants to understand us. There's a difference between scanning DNA and actually talking to people. She was right. Over the next week, Jake sat in on hundreds of conversations between the Keeper and humans from every corner of Earth and the space colonies. The artifact asked each person the same question, and every answer seemed to fascinate it more. A construction worker named Tony Lopez from the Mars colony went first. He was a big guy with calloused hands and a nervous smile. What is your bloodline? The Keeper asked. Oh man, I'm a mutt, Tony laughed. My mom's family is Puerto Rican and Korean. Dad's got Egyptian and Swedish in him. I did one of those DNA tests and it was like a paint palette of everywhere. You say this with pride, the Keeper observed. Yeah, why not? Makes for interesting family dinners. We celebrate like 6 different New Years. Next came Rachel Torres, a cargo ship captain with gray streaks in her black hair. Brazilian, Filipino, Polish, and West African, she said, ticking them off on her fingers. My family tree looks like someone threw darts at a world map. Does this create conflict in your identity? The Keeper asked. Rachel looked confused. Conflict? No. It's just who I am. All those places made me. Then there was Tom Hayes, a young engineer who couldn't have been older than 22. When the Keeper asked his question, Tom's expression fell. I don't know, he admitted quietly. I'm a colony orphan. My parents died in the Titan Station disaster when I was 3. No records survived. Jake expected the Keeper to be disappointed, but instead it said, Yet you are here, part of this human collective. Your unknown ancestry does not exclude you from belonging. I guess not, Tom said, looking surprised. Never thought about it that way. The interviews went on and on. A teacher whose grandparents came from 7 different countries. A doctor who traced her ancestry back to 3 continents. A teenager who joked that his heritage was basically the entire UN. Every single person had a story of mixture, of blending, of family trees that crossed oceans and borders. But not everyone watching was pleased. Jake was in the observation room when Ambassador Kelvin of the Karate arrived. The Karate were humanity's closest alien allies, insect-like beings with shimmering carapaces. Kelvin's translator device made his voice sound tinny and mechanical. I do not understand the purpose of this exercise, Kelvin said, his antennae twitching with agitation. What is this artifact testing? The Keeper's response was broadcast through the room's speakers. I am not testing. I am confirming what the progenitors sought for 5 million years. And what is that? Whether a species can overcome its nature. The hologram projectors activated again, but this time they showed something different. Historical records, the Keeper explained, from the progenitors themselves. Images of magnificent cities, technology beyond imagination, beings of pure energy who'd seeded life across hundreds of worlds. The progenitors were powerful beyond measure, the Keeper narrated. They created life, guided evolution, watched civilizations rise. But they failed in one crucial way. They could not create unity. The images shifted to show species after species tearing themselves apart. War after war. Genocide after genocide. All driven by the same thing, the idea that one group's bloodline was superior to another's. 37 species reached spacefaring capability, the Keeper continued. 37 species encountered the progenitors. 37 species received gifts of knowledge and technology. And 37 species destroyed themselves because they could not see past genetic division. Dr. Grant leaned forward in her seat. So the progenitors gave up. No. They evolved beyond physical form, but before they did, they left us. Keepers. Sentinels placed throughout the galaxy with one purpose, to find a species that learned what the progenitors could not teach. A species that chose unity over purity. Ambassador Kelvin's translator crackled. And you believe humans are this species? I do not believe. I have verified. The Keeper's light pulsed steadily. Humanity spent thousands of years making the same mistakes as other species. Wars over skin color. Persecution over ancestry. Genocide over heritage. But unlike every other species, humans learned from these mistakes. Slowly, painfully, across generations, you chose to blend rather than separate. You created a world where genetic mixture became the norm rather than the exception. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. So we passed your test. You passed the test the progenitors designed before they left this plane of existence. You are the first species in 5 million years to do so. The room fell silent. Then Kelvin spoke again, his voice quieter. What does this mean for the rest of us? The Karate have a caste system based on genetic lineage. It has been our way for 12,000 years. Your way is leading to the same end as the 37 before you, the Keeper said bluntly. I have observed the fractures in your society. The resentment of lower castes. The growing violence. You are on the same path, Ambassador. Kelvin's antennae drooped. Jake felt bad for the guy. Having an ancient alien AI tell you your entire civilization was doomed couldn't feel good. But the Keeper wasn't done. However, you now have something the other 37 did not. You have an example. Humanity can show you another path, if you are willing to learn. Over the next few days, more alien ambassadors arrived. The insectoid Karate. The aquatic Vel. The crystalline Nethran. Each one watched the interviews with humans, seeing the same pattern over and over. Mixture. Diversity. Integration. All the things their own societies had been taught to avoid. Some of the ambassadors were fascinated. Others were horrified. A few stormed out, calling it propaganda. But Jake noticed something interesting. The younger aliens, the ones who'd grown up with human media and culture, they seemed intrigued. Hopeful, even. On the 7th day, the Keeper made its announcement. I have completed my evaluation. Humanity has proven itself worthy of the inheritance. However, there is a complication. Jake's stomach dropped. What kind of complication? 14 spacefaring civilizations now know of my awakening. 6 are mobilizing military forces to seize progenitor technology before humanity can claim it. 3 others are experiencing internal upheaval as their populations question genetic hierarchies. 2 have already experienced violent uprisings. Dr. Grant stood up abruptly. You're saying we started a galactic crisis? No. I am saying humanity's success has forced other species to confront their own failures. Some will adapt. Others will fight. The galaxy will never return to what it was. Jake ran his hands through his hair. This was insane. He'd made a joke. One stupid joke at 3 in the morning, and now there were alien governments collapsing and fleets mobilizing for war. So what do we do? He asked. You choose, the Keeper said simply. I am offering humanity the full inheritance of the progenitors. Technology centuries beyond your current level. Knowledge of the cosmos. Power to defend yourselves and shape the galaxy. But accepting comes with consequences. You will become a target. You will be responsible for managing this power wisely. And most importantly, the choice cannot be made by your leaders alone. Then who makes it? Jake asked, though he was starting to suspect the answer. Everyone. Every human must vote. This is too important for representatives or governments. Your entire species must decide, together, what kind of future you want. Jake looked at Dr. Grant, who looked at Director Patterson, who looked at the various officials and ambassadors in the room. 8 billion people having to agree on something. It seemed impossible. How long do we have? Jake asked. As long as you need. But know this, other forces are already moving. The longer you deliberate, the more dangerous the situation becomes. Jake took a deep breath. All right then. Guess we're having the biggest vote in human history. The Keeper pulsed with approval. The final test begins now. The arguments started immediately. Everyone had an opinion about whether humanity should accept the Keeper's inheritance, and nobody was shy about sharing it. Jake watched the debates unfold on every screen, every channel, every social media platform. It was exhausting. But before the vote could happen, the Keeper had one more surprise. Jake Williams, you and a selected delegation will accompany me to one of the progenitor vaults. You must see what you are choosing to accept or reject. That's how Jake found himself on a military transport heading to the Kuiper Belt, way out past Neptune. With him were Dr. Grant, General Robert Kane, a stern man who barely spoke, and a handful of other officials who all looked way more qualified for this than a former night shift worker. You doing okay? Dr. Grant asked, noticing Jake staring out the viewport at the distant stars. I keep thinking this has to be a dream, Jake admitted. 2 weeks ago, my biggest concern was whether the vending machine would be restocked. Now I'm flying to a secret alien vault that might contain weapons that could destroy planets. For what it's worth, you're handling this better than most people would. I threw up twice this morning. Like I said, better than most. The vault was hidden inside a massive asteroid, completely invisible to normal scans. The keeper guided them through corridors of smooth black material that seemed to absorb light. Jake's footsteps echoed in the silence, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking through a tomb. Then they reached the main chamber, and Jake forgot how to breathe. The room was enormous, easily the size of a football stadium. And it was filled with technology. Devices of every shape and size, glowing softly with internal light. Holographic displays showing star charts and equations. Machines that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. Everything was pristine, perfectly preserved, waiting. This is one vault, the keeper said. There are 347 others like it scattered throughout the galaxy. All containing progenitor knowledge and technology. General Kane approached what looked like a weapon, his trained eye recognizing it immediately despite the alien design. What does this do? It can disintegrate matter at the molecular level from orbital distance. Effective range, 12,000 kilometers. The progenitors use such devices to clear asteroids for mining. And would have access to these? If humanity accepts the inheritance, yes. Dr. Grant was examining a different section, her tablet out and scanning everything. These look like medical devices. This one appears to regenerate damaged tissue. This one might cure genetic diseases. Jake, come look at this. Jake walked over, still overwhelmed by everything around him. Dr. Grant pointed to a cylindrical device covered in symbols. If I'm reading the Keeper's translation right, this can extend human lifespan by 200 or 300 years. Do you understand what that means? We could end aging. We could also end ourselves, General Kane said grimly. He was still studying the weapons. I count at least 50 different ways to kill people in this room alone. And you said there are over 300 more vaults like this. Correct, the Keeper confirmed. Then would be insane to accept. Humanity isn't ready for this kind of power. Humanity is never ready, the Keeper responded. No species is. Readiness is not the criteria. The willingness to learn and grow is what matters. Jake wandered deeper into the vault, his head spinning. Every device represented something incredible. Cures for diseases. Solutions to energy problems. Ways to clean Earth's oceans and atmosphere. But also weapons. Terrible weapons that made nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. He found himself in front of a holographic display showing what looked like a history lesson. The Keeper's voice followed him. That is a record of the Tiverian species. They received progenitor technology 400,000 years ago. What happened to them? They used the medical technology to extend their ruling caste's lifespan indefinitely. The lower castes, denied access, eventually revolted. The war lasted 300 years. Their homeworld is now a lifeless rock. Jake felt sick. And you're offering us the same technology that destroyed them. I am offering you the same choice they had. They chose poorly. Perhaps you will choose better. Another display caught Jake's attention. This one showed what looked like a thriving civilization, cities of light and beauty. Who were they? The Coventhi. They accepted the inheritance and used it wisely for nearly 10,000 years. They shared technology with neighboring species, created an alliance of 14 worlds, and pushed the boundaries of science and art. So it worked? They survived. For a time. Then a younger species, jealous of their prosperity, attacked them. The Coventhi were peaceful and had neglected military applications of progenitor technology. They were wiped out in 6 months. Jake turned to look at the Keeper's sphere, which had followed them into the vault. So what's the lesson here? Accept the inheritance and maybe destroy ourselves, or accept it and definitely get destroyed by someone else. The lesson is that power itself is neutral. What matters is how you use it and whether you have the wisdom to handle the consequences. The progenitors learned this too late. They had all the power in the universe, but they could not create unity among the species they encountered. Every gift they gave was turned into a weapon. Every lesson they taught was ignored. Dr. Grant joined Jake, her expression troubled. So why offer it to us? If you've seen so many species fail, why take the chance on humanity? Because you have demonstrated something unique. You learned to overcome division without the progenitor's guidance. You did it yourselves, slowly, painfully, across thousands of years. That suggests wisdom that the others lacked. General Kane walked over, his boots clicking on the strange floor. But you can't guarantee we won't make the same mistakes. No. I cannot. This is why the choice must be yours. All of yours. 8 billion humans deciding together what kind of species you wish to be. They spent 6 more hours in the vault, documenting everything, taking readings, trying to understand the full scope of what was being offered. Jake found himself growing more conflicted with each passing minute. The medical technology alone could save billions of lives. But the weapons could end billions just as easily. As they prepared to leave, Jake asked the Keeper one more question. Why me? Why did you make me the representative? I'm nobody special. That is precisely why, the Keeper replied. The progenitors learned that chosen leaders often make choices based on maintaining power. But someone ordinary, someone who stumbled into this role by accident, is more likely to represent the true nature of their species. You did not seek this responsibility, Jake Williams. It found you. That makes you perfect for the role. The trip back to Earth was quiet. Everyone was lost in their own thoughts. Jake stared out the viewport again, watching Earth grow larger as they approached. That little blue marble held 8 billion people, all of whom were about to make the biggest decision in human history. When they landed, the media was waiting. Cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions. Jake let the officials handle most of it, but eventually someone shoved a microphone in his face. Mr. Williams, what did you see in the vault? Should humanity accept the inheritance? Jake looked at the camera, knowing millions of people were watching. Maybe billions. He thought about everything he'd seen. The weapons and the medicine. The warnings and the possibilities. The species that failed and the ones that succeeded for a while. I saw our future, he said finally. Multiple versions of it. Some good, some terrible. And I realized that's always been true. Humanity's always had the power to build or destroy. We invented nuclear energy and used it for power plants and bombs. We created the internet for communication and used it for connection and conflict. The progenitor technology is just a bigger version of the same choice we've always faced. So what should we choose? Jake smiled tiredly. That's not my call to make. It's all of ours. And honestly, that's exactly how it should be. The vote was scheduled to begin in 72 hours. The entire world held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would choose. The next 3 months were absolute chaos. Jake had thought the initial media frenzy was bad, but the global referendum made it look like a quiet Tuesday. Every news channel ran 24-hour coverage. Social media became a battlefield of opinions. Families argued over dinner tables. Friends stopped speaking to each other. The whole world seemed to split into camps. Jake tried to stay out of it, but that was impossible. Everyone wanted to interview him, get his opinion, hear about what he'd seen in the vault. He did a few interviews at first, trying to be helpful, but eventually he had to go into hiding. Dr. Grant smuggled him into a small apartment under a fake name where he could actually sleep without reporters camping outside his door. You doing okay? She asked one evening, bringing him takeout since he couldn't risk going outside. I've been better, Jake admitted, picking at his noodles. Have you seen the latest polls? Try to ignore them. They swing wildly every day depending on which news story is trending. But Jake couldn't ignore them. He spent hours scrolling through arguments online, reading essays from philosophers and scientists and random people who just wanted to be heard. The debate had consumed the entire planet. Their accept side argued that humanity had already proven they could handle power responsibly. Look at nuclear weapons, they said. Humanity had them for over a century and hadn't destroyed themselves. The progenitor technology could solve climate change, end disease, and give humanity the tools to explore the galaxy safely. Refusing it would be cowardly, a rejection of humanity's potential. The reject side countered that nuclear weapons were a perfect example of why humanity shouldn't be trusted with more power. Several countries still threatened each other with annihilation. Wars still raged over resources and ideology. Giving humanity progenitor technology would be like giving a toddler a loaded gun. Better to develop slowly, naturally, and earn advanced technology through their own progress. Then there was the practical argument. 6 alien civilizations were already mobilizing military forces. Accepting the inheritance meant painting a target on Earth's back. But rejecting it might mean those same civilizations would seize the technology and use it against humanity anyway. Jake watched world leaders give speeches. Religious figures debated the morality of accepting gifts from long-dead aliens. Scientists published papers analyzing every angle. Regular people posted videos explaining their reasoning, their fears, their hopes. One video stuck with Jake. It was from a teacher in Brazil named Carlos, standing in his modest classroom. I teach history, Carlos said to the camera. And history shows us that humanity makes mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But it also shows us that we learn. We're not the same species we were 1,000 years ago, or even 100 years ago. We've grown. Not perfectly, not completely, but we've grown. That has to count for something. Another video came from a soldier named Amy in Australia. I've seen war, she said, her voice heavy with experience. I've seen what humans do to each other when we're scared or angry. And I'm telling you, we're not ready for weapons that can destroy planets. We can barely handle the weapons we have now. Both arguments made sense. That was the problem. Jake could see the validity in every perspective, and that made the decision even harder. Meanwhile, the Keeper remained silent through most of the debate. Jake visited it a few times, finding strange comfort in the glowing sphere that had turned his life upside down. "You're not going to tell us what to choose, are you?" Jake asked during one visit. "No. This choice must be yours, made freely without influence from me." "But you have an opinion." "My opinion is irrelevant. The progenitors learned that forcing wisdom upon others never works. Species must choose their own path." Jake slumped in his chair. "What if we choose wrong?" "Then you will face the consequences, learn from them, and choose again. That is the nature of growth." Very philosophical for an ancient computer. The Keeper's light pulsed in what Jake had learned to recognize as amusement. "I have had 5 million years to contemplate philosophy. You pick up a few things." As the voting deadline approached, Jake received an unexpected message. The Keeper wanted to speak with him privately. When he arrived at the vault, the artifact projected a hologram, a private communication meant only for Jake. "Regardless of how humanity votes, I want you to understand something," the Keeper said. "Your species has already succeeded in the most important way. The fact that you are having this debate, that every voice is being heard, that you are struggling with the moral implications, this demonstrates wisdom that 37 other species lacked. Even if we vote to reject the inheritance. Especially if you reject it. Knowing your limitations is a form of wisdom. Choosing caution over ambition shows maturity. There is no wrong answer here, Jake Williams. Only the answer that humanity believes is right for this moment in your development." Jake felt some of the weight lift from his shoulders. "I wish you'd told everyone that 3 months ago. Might have made the arguing less intense." The arguing is part of the process. Democracy is messy, but it ensures that decisions reflect the will of the people rather than the ambitions of the few. The voting took place over 48 hours to accommodate every time zone and give everyone a chance to participate. Jake watched the numbers come in, barely able to breathe. The results were closer than anyone expected. 71% voted to accept the inheritance. But they added conditions, lots of conditions. Humanity would accept the progenitor technology, but they'd do it carefully. A joint oversight council would be established, including representatives from allied alien species. Defensive technology would be shared with allies to prevent arms races. Offensive weapons would remain locked in the vaults, accessible only by unanimous global consent. Medical and environmental technology would be distributed freely. And most importantly, a significant portion of resources would go toward education, teaching humanity to use their new tools responsibly. It wasn't a blank check. It was a cautious acceptance with heavy restrictions and accountability measures. When Jake saw the final vote breakdown and all the conditions, he actually laughed. "What's funny?" Dr. Grant asked. "We're accepting godlike technology, but we're also wrapping it in so much red tape and oversight that it'll take us years to actually use most of it. That's the most human thing I've ever seen." The Keeper's response surprised everyone. Its light pulsed brightly, and when it spoke, Jake swore he heard satisfaction in its ancient voice. "Perfect. Humanity has chosen wisdom over recklessness, cooperation over domination, and careful progress over rash ambition. This is precisely the answer the progenitors hoped for but never witnessed." "You're happy we're going slow?" General Kane asked, surprised. "Speed is irrelevant. Intention is everything. Humanity has demonstrated that it understands power must be balanced with responsibility. That is the lesson 37 species failed to learn." The technology began flowing, but true to humanity's vote, it came with structure. International committees formed to evaluate each device. Scientists from every nation worked together to understand the medical technology. Engineers collaborated on adapting progenitor power systems. And surprisingly, alien species asked to participate. The karate ambassador, Kelvin, approached Jake 6 months after the vote. My government wishes to learn from humanity's approach. Our caste system is crumbling. Young karate are demanding change, citing humanity as proof that genetic integration creates strength rather than weakness. That's good, right? Jake asked. It is terrifying and hopeful in equal measure. Change is difficult, but necessary. Kelvin's antennae twitched in what Jake had learned was their equivalent of a smile. Your species has given the galaxy something unexpected. Not just technology, but an example. Over the next year, Jake watched as humanity carefully, methodically began integrating progenitor knowledge. The first success was a water purification system that could clean entire oceans. Then came a medical device that could cure most cancers. An energy system that could replace fossil fuels. Each breakthrough was celebrated, but also carefully regulated and distributed. Other alien species took notice. The Vel Communion began dismantling their genetic purity laws. The Nethran opened their closed borders for the first time in thousands of years. 3 species that had been on the verge of self-destruction asked humanity for guidance on conflict resolution. The galaxy was changing, and humanity hadn't fired a single shot. Jake eventually returned to a normal life, or as normal as possible for someone who'd accidentally changed galactic history. He took a position as a cultural liaison, helping alien species understand how humanity had overcome its own divisions. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt important. 20 years after that night shift when he told an artifact to wake up as a joke, Jake returned to the vault where it all started. The keeper was still there, still glowing softly. Do you ever regret it? Jake asked. Waking up for me specifically? I'm sure there were more qualified people you could have waited for. You asked me this before. My answer remains the same. You were perfect because you were ordinary. You represented humanity's true nature, not its idealized version. And look what that ordinary nature accomplished. Jake looked at his reflection in the sphere's surface. He had gray in his hair now, lines around his eyes. He wasn't that scared 26-year-old night shift worker anymore. Did we pass your test? The keeper pulsed warmly. You passed the moment you told me about your mixed heritage with casual acceptance rather than shame or superiority. Everything since has simply been humanity teaching the galaxy what took the progenitors a million years to understand. True strength comes not from pure bloodlines or isolated populations, but from the beautiful complexity of mixture and the courage to embrace difference. Jake smiled. Not bad for a joke that actually worked. The best truths often begin as jokes. They lower defenses and speak to deeper wisdom. The keeper paused. I have one final question, Jake Williams. If you could go back to that night and choose not to speak to me, knowing everything that followed, would you stay silent? Jake thought about the chaos, the pressure, the arguments, and the fear. Then he thought about the changes, the progress, the species learning to see past their divisions, the slowly healing galaxy. Not a chance, he said. Best joke I ever told. The keeper's light pulsed in agreement, and somewhere in the vast galaxy, other species continued learning that humanity's greatest gift wasn't technology or warfare. It was the stubborn, persistent belief that differences made them stronger, not weaker, and that belief was more powerful than any weapon the progenitors had ever created.